Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are rolling along here in the NBA. Games 80, 81, around there for some teams. We've got 5 games here on Thursday in the NBA. Plenty to choose from, to be honest with you. A couple teams that we're definitely looking at here with some value. Also want to make sure you are subscribed to that page so you can check out the Playa Props video that we have up today and each and every weekday as well as we head into this postseason. Also want you to head to TheLines.com and use everything we have up on the site right now, including that prop finder tool to make sure that you are getting the best juice on all these player props and the like that you're making in the NBA the rest of this regular season, as we only have a couple games left. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into that NOLA and SAC game that we're talking about first.
Yeah, it's the big one tonight. As we know, we hunt for teams that are both playing for something, and I'm going to take the Pelicans plus 1.5 or just money line here. It's just a good matchup for them. I mean, and the Pelicans are that type of team where if they have a good matchup, they tend to come through. The Kings and the Warriors have been good for them, right? And they've won 4 straight decisively. I think 2 of those were with a rest advantage in the last couple seasons here against the Kings, but regardless, even on equal rest, right? They win back-to-back in Sacramento handily. And it's just tough when the Kings are so dependent on 2 guys who have vulnerabilities against this team. De'Aaron Fox in 7 games against Herb Jones, 20 points per game on a 93 offensive rating, nearly as many turnovers as assists. Domas, he gets his against everybody, 125 offensive rating, but 124 defensive rating. So he's a minus 97 against the Pelicans with Sacramento here. And as good as he is at limiting guys at the rim, Domas, somehow, him and Jokic have that European Jedi mind trick or whatever that that makes you stop short and take a weird floater. Sac is allowing the most field goals at 5 to 9 feet range at the highest percentage since the All-Star break. So to me, that says Zion's going to have some success because he is a guy who does still thrive in that range. He doesn't need to get all the way to the rim. He's got good bank work, if you will. And he shot 68% in his career against this team, plus 33 in his minutes. Noah on the other end is number 3, limiting that range and at the rim. So, Kings are going to have to beat them from deep. They haven't been giving up anything on the road, though, except against the Orlando Magic. The Pelicans have only struggled defensively against the Orlando Magic in the last few weeks. They've won 8 of their last 9 roadies. Otherwise, they have the best defensive rating in the league. Number 1 points per game by 3 points, and number 5 assists per game. Kings have been dependent on assists and spreading the ball out since they've lost their secondary playmaker, right? No Malik Monk. In the last 4, they're averaging 105, shooting only 47% on 2s. So they've been really dependent on getting these 17 threes down, and they've been highly assisted. 91% of those are assisted. The Pels are not really giving that up. Even at home, this Kings offense has been broken since the All-Star break. Without Kevin Huerter a long time now, but they are struggling to generate fast break points. They're 25th in points off turnovers. It's just not the same Kings teams in terms of offense that we've seen. And now they get a great defense walking in here. Both teams on the front end of a back-to-back. Pelicans have a tougher schedule to finish. So I think this is a very important game for them to get this win.
I agree with some of what you said, and I don't know that I agree fully with some other stuff. So I'll just get into it because I'm going with the under in this game, and obviously both can hit here. So I'm not bullish enough to take the Sacramento Kings right now. I'll tell you that they terrify me with the way that they're playing. But look, if ever there was a team that should scare you as well, it's NOLA. There's a couple other teams in the West that I think we can now trust moving forward, like the Dallas Mavericks, who have been untrustable. I don't know that either of these teams are trustable, but I think the way to play this one and the way I did play it is the under. I got a 218.5. It's at 217.5. I think probably some people agree, but there's not necessarily enough. There hasn't been enough action on the Pellies to necessarily and on the under to just push it down too hard. But what I'm looking at in this game is the 2 most undery teams right now, especially the Kangs. They are so undery, and it's what's going to happen when you trade Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk for Davion Mitchell and Keon Ellis. What do you think is going to happen? Short of Keon Ellis hitting 8 3-pointers the other game. You're not going to be getting 20 points from him the way that you would be on any given night from from Monk, and even potentially Huerter. But either way, I think the pace for the Pelicans as of late has been a little bit faster, playing some pretty bad teams, if we're being honest as well. They've got like the 5th easiest strength of schedule in that time frame after the gauntlet that they went through, and that has helped them improve things. But they're still 4-6 to the under, to the over rather, in their last 10, and this Kings team is 2-8 to the under, because I don't think we've caught up with the fact that this is no longer the Kings team of a month or two ago even. And it's partly because I think Mike Brown made it clear, if you listen to some of his pressers post game, he made it clear that they're going to be prioritizing defense moving into the playoffs. But also it's just going to be what happens when the personnel changes the way that it did, from shooters and scorers to defenders who are out there as NBA defenders more than anything. The other stuff here is like the Kings. I actually don't. The thing I think I disagree with is that Zion is not bad if he doesn't get all the way to the rim, right? Like, he's actually shooting about 38% in those non-restricted paint shots, and I do think he needs to get all the way there. I still, for the life of me, haven't figured out how teams like, I guess I have. The only explanation I have for why like the Kings and the Warriors are actually limiting teams in terms of the amount of field goals made down low is because their defense, be it before you get into the paint, is really good. So they don't let you get all the way to the rim, more so than having a shot blocker that actually challenges you at the rim, because Alex Len ain't getting enough minutes to really up that defensive field goal percentage around the rim for the Kings. And alligator arm Sabonis didn't just turn into one of the best defenders down low all of a sudden. It's just a big part of it is their defense has ramped up, like I said, with Keon Ellis, and especially with Davion Mitchell as well, finally getting more minutes after he was injured earlier in the season. Like, those two dudes are going to be ball stopping wing defenders. So that's why I lean on the under here. The Pelicans, in their own right, like I said, 4-6 in their last 10 to the over here, but still games averaging a pretty low total here, about 215, 216 in that time frame. And obviously you get helped out by the Magic, but that is the case for the Kings as well. Like, they've been on this tear, and really just the last thing here is like the matchup, and what the only way that I really see this thing getting extended out is if this Pelicans 3-point defense fails to come through. And on top of that, if the Kings foul too much. Those would be the two areas that I would worry about for the under. But I do think that in the last 10 games, it's a pretty good sample for this Kings team. The Kings team being a little bit better on defense, limiting free throws, although it's been a problem for them this season. It's probably in part why they've been a little bit better down low. But I'm not worried about that causing too much of a problem, because I don't think the threes will be there for the Kings either.
Yeah, both things can happen. Both things might be correlated, because, I mean, I'm talking mostly about the Pelicans shutting down the Kings offense, continuing to pile onto their offensive struggles, rather than saying like they have these huge advantages on the other end. The Kings, no longer a home road splits team, just straight up low scoring slugfest. They've gone under 8 straight at home against playoff teams, or against competitive teams, if you will. Like, the only overs are Utah and Memphis. So that's the new normal for this team. So we might have a little fun banter here on this one. Knicks at Celtics, and the Celtics are listing 4 or 5 starters as questionable. So this line has flipped from -4 to +2.5, and I will take the Boston Celtics at home. Yeah, we'll take them on the money line, +120. I'm hoping, certainly, I think if I'm forecasting, Drew and one of the Jays are going to sit. Porzingis will probably only play 28 to 30 minutes like he has been playing. But we do have Derek White in there, and the Celtics have won 81% of their games with Derek White this season, with some insane offensive numbers, and 75% since he joined the team. If you're reading the tea leaves a little bit here, they have the G League finals tonight. 4 two-way guys are not going to be active for the Celtics, so they cannot necessarily sit everybody and play a bunch of G Leaguers. I mean, there's other bodies to fill it in, but I mean, that is encouraging to say, like, okay, maybe we'll get some of the starters here. Also, like, the Celtics, their final 2 games are home against Charlotte and Washington. They can pretty much wrap up going 38-3 at home. If they beat these Knicks, they can sweep the Knicks 5-0, which is a nice confidence boost, certainly. And they're coming off this historic 0 free throw game in a loss at Milwaukee, which will both influence the referees to a degree and influence the Celtics to say, like, all right, dust that one off, let's come back. And it's the Celtics at home. Like, I don't even care if it's Peyton Pritchard out there as your number one option. Like, there's some stuff that's happening at home for this team this year, which, like I said, can go 38-3. And I'm stunned that that's not even like 10th best in the NBA that even in the modern era. I mean, you got the Bulls and the Warriors, and the Spurs went 40-1 at home one year, but for the Celtics, it would still be impressive, and they just have handled business since that Lakers loss. 13 straight home wins, plus 23.5 net with a 30-10 assist to turnover ratio. They've also only lost one division game, and that was in November at Philly. And the Knicks, just because you need a win doesn't mean you get a win. Like, we learn this every year in the NFL season. Teams are happy to be like, oh, you need this more than us, huh? Like, well, we're just going to this is a rivalry, right? The Celtics would be happy to send the Knicks down towards the 4-5 range, even if that means they'll see them later on because they sweat this team. And this is a rest disadvantage for them. 6th in 9 nights, 4 of 5 on the road. Jalen Brunson is carrying an absurd load, 39% usage, 40 minutes per game. Can he score 38 points like he has been in his last 7? Or will he score more like the 23 he scored his last 5 against Boston? Because, again, our guy Derek White's out there, the most unsung hero in the NBA, just a fantastic connector. So yeah, I mean, I like the Celtics if you're going to give me plus money.
You're chiseling away at my armor by using Derek White. You know how much I love Derek White. It's hard for me to go against a D White point that you're making here, and I won't try to. I will just say I don't even know that you can bank on. I think it's going to be the only thing I would disagree with about the injury trends here is that Al Horford and Kristaps probably won't play in the same game. They've been doing the flip-flop thing here. So when you see them both questionable, it reasons to believe that they would sit one of them and then and then sit the other one the next game. So that would be the only thing.
Sat against the Bucks, and he wants to play against the Knicks.
Who KP?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I wonder if he still does have that revenge factor. But either way, I just think that the teams that this Boston team has beaten when they bring out their backups, like they had a really nice lead against that Kings team, who I trust way less than the Knicks right now. And they brought in their backups and almost lost after being up by about 10 in the fourth quarter. I think the Knicks pull that game out, right? And that's kind of what I'm saying. I think Jalen Brunson's a better finisher than any team on that, any player on the Kings. Even clutch player of the year, defending clutch player of the year, De'Aaron Fox. I'm still talking about JB there. But either way, I'll just stick to an over in this game. And I can understand how that might be a little bit scary, but as the Knicks and the Kings have basically just switched bodies, right? They did a whole little like switch me, because the Knicks went from a team, and look, the Knicks are still playing slowly with one of the slowest, if not the slowest pace in the league over their last 5 to 10 games. But the offense, my God, the offense. I mean, and they're getting out in transition right now, right? Like the stuff that really stands out for me for this Knicks is the second best offensive rating over their last 5 and their last 10, and the 20th defensive rating. So they're still playing at the slowest pace over that time frame, but they're also now not a very good rebounding team all of a sudden. And I'm not going to say they're bad, but they do have the 6th worst rebound percentage over their last 5 games, playing a middle of the pack, middle of the road kind of schedule here. But I do think that's led to them giving up a bunch more points. They've given up way more second chance points in these last 5 than they normally do on the season. And the last point here would just be the defensive field goal. Like, they have not been defending from 3 very well. So everything I just said does lead to believe that the Celtics will have a good time in this game. But I think as long as the Celtics don't just go absolutely crazy cold from 3, that they're going to be definitely bringing it to the Knicks until basically the second, like the fourth quarter, essentially. Like, I think all these dudes play 3 quarters, and then you see like maybe 4 minutes of like whichever Jay plays in this game in the fourth quarter, right? And then you see a lot of Pritchard and Hauser and those guys, and probably some Jaden Springer as well in there, who's obviously a little bit better for defense. But I think either way for the Celtics, like, we know what they're going to do, and the Knicks giving up the amount of threes that they've given up in the last 5 to 10 games is got to be alarming for them. But I still think that the total is good, because I do believe in JB. I know he's had a bit of struggle compared to what he has in the last, against everybody else essentially this season, especially the way he's been playing over the last 7 games. But at the same time, he is still the prototypical type of player who would be able to score against the Celtics team. They do struggle against ball handlers in the pick and roll. I think Luka's the only one at this point that's in the pick and roll more often than Jalen Brunson is. How fitting, the two one former Mav and current Mav. But that's really what it takes to handle this Boston team a little bit worse above the break threes, which is where he's shooting. And if you step in and get into that mid range, I do think that'll be available for JB as well. And then after that, a little bit worse off the spot ups as well, right? Like the dudes like Dante DiVincenzo, potentially some OG Anunoby being open for spot up shots is something that you'd worry about in this game if you're a Celtics Celtics fan as well. So it's tough for me to get behind. I know it's not just like the idea of, oh, the Knicks need to win, so they're going to win. It's they need to win, so their subs and their rotations are going to be indicative of that way more than the Celtics. It's purely that as far as me thinking that they're going to pull this game out. But as far as the over goes, I think both teams are hitting lots of threes, and I think it's going to be a huge part of this. And if there is one big dude that doesn't play for this Celtics squad, then we're talking about a lot more availability down low for second chance points for Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson and even some Precious. So I think the points with these two teams is good to go. They've gone over in two of the three that were not the play-in tournament in terms of this spread right here, which is a little bit weird. And they even went over in that one. But more importantly, I'm just going to stick with the over here and make my case known that I also believe in the Knicks to win this one.
One more shot in there. I mean, yeah, I agree because the Celtics have a 131 offensive rating in this 13 game home winning streak, and that has not been with all their starters. Like, don't make no mistake, like they've been resting guys in rotation, and they come out and they keep firing, especially at home. I mean, what we see, freaking Luke Cornett could come out there and hit a few threes to keep this one rolling. But I mean, yeah, the only other thing about the Celtics is like they have now a rust situation that they have to worry about. If you don't play guys against the Knicks, you're playing two joke teams down the stretch. You won't get to play a playoff game for like 8-9 days, maybe after that. You have to wait for the whole play-in to develop here. So I think they are going to want to come out and give an honest effort here. I mean, obviously keep an eye on the injury report. We'll see who goes, but as long as they have like half of the guys listed as questionable, the rotation guys, I'll ride with them all day.
Let's get it. Let's see what happens tonight. It's going to be a good one either way. I do think it'll be a fun between the two teams that play at different gardens. So that's all the time we have for you, though, in Best Bets. Continue to follow along and check out the player props that we also have up for you as we do each and every weekday. And until we see you next, happy betting.